In a world where trauma is real, where people seek out distraction from their internal lives and relationships with others, and where no one is taught healthy self-care, help was needed. In 2019, the mission began. Find a way to help people understand and better their mental health. Seek out ways to explore relationships and how they work. Fight against the stigmas that surround counseling and therapy. And, most importantly,
do all of that so you don't have to be a therapist to understand it. Hey everybody. Welcome to Season 2 of Therapist Theater. I'm your host, Josh Treese. I'm a practicing therapist in Music City, USA, and every week a guest therapist, counselor, or social worker joins me here in the theater to talk about a movie that we've seen and what relationships or mental health issues it highlights. This week's guest is Ashley Vicari. Ashley is a practicing licensed professional counselor in Tennessee whose focus is on trauma and eating disorder work, and that work is shaped through her therapeutic lens of attachment. She believes in relational work and providing a good, safe, and appropriate space for her clients to do their processing. Thanks so much for downloading today's show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And while you're doing that, help other people find the show by giving it a 5-star rating and writing a review for it in the podcast app. Well, pumpkins, looks like it's that age-old dilemma. Style or dim the lights, raise the curtain, and start the previews. Welcome to the theater. Ashley, how's it going?
Hello. I'm great. How are you?
I love it. I am doing fantastic. It is so great to have you on and I guess meet you mobily, like from a distance. We were chatting a bit before we started recording and I said then and I'll say now, it really is like, it makes me tremendously sad that I have had a chance to have incredible guests on that I have not gotten to meet in person because of social distancing. Yeah. And but you know, this is a great plan B to get to do it this way.
I've said kind of since all of this pandemic started how neat it is that we are getting so creative with our different devices and the different things we're doing to connect. And I'm really thankful that even though the pandemic is happening, that we can still have this modality of connection and conversation. I think it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. I don't think that heading into it that I was like cynical or doubtful as to how you know, telehealth or doing sessions over video chat-ish kind of things, or even recording remotely like we're doing at work. But I can say I've been pleasantly surprised by it. Yeah. Like I have had clients who at the beginning were like, I'm going to sit it out until we can get back in person, who have circled back. And then I, you know, after the first session, check in with them like, how was it? What do you think? You know, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I kind of, you know, which they're doing that high voice thing. So I don't know if that means they're trying to be polite or, but they're sticking with it. So, I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, I actually was kind of cynical about it. I'll get into this later, but I come from such an attachment perspective that I really value the connection that a client and myself get in the same room, you know. I really think that it can be so helpful to helping them create change. And so it's funny to say this, but I was probably a little anti-teletherapy. Yeah. And I will say it has been beautiful to do this. and the people that I have been able to continue to connect with, my clients, have all been extremely appreciative of what we have been able to do. And yeah, so I'm really I'm I'm enjoying it, and I don't know that I would have jumped in so soon had this not come up. You know.
Yeah. I think there was something about the telehealth thing that kind of translated in my brain. I'm still, if you're on, I think, Instagram or YouTube for 5 minutes, or maybe it's just me
Hmm.
because it's tracking me, but it gives me advertisements for these like online counseling services that
Hmm.
you can like text with a therapist,
Hmm.
or it says that you can get a therapist 24/7, and
Yeah.
those I'm like, ugh. I feel like I'm a bit
Yeah.
like an old man get off my lawn kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mainly because I feel like that doesn't really promote great boundaries
I
uh, for the
completely
therapist
agree.
or the client.
Yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
telehealth,
That feels interesting to me. I don't know that I could be a part of something like that, available 24/7. Um,
mm-hmm.
and those that are, I mean, I imagine that they have a structured set of boundaries that they work with that. But yeah, I like my set
Yeah.
appointments.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, if let's say that I've got a client, I'm on that thing, and they text at 3 in the morning, and I'm like dead asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, they can text. I'm not going to be. I don't even hear my phone when I'm in
Yeah.
that level of
Yeah.
sleep. So I wonder if it like routes them to a different therapist, and if that's the case, like, and you just get a different person every time you go to chat. Like, how can you make any kind of relational
Yeah.
connection or progress? I mean,
Well, right. And then I wonder if it just then kind of perpetuates this, not that reaching out is a maladaptive behavior, that's not what I'm saying, but
right,
I
right.
wonder if it perpetuates this idea that every time I'm in crisis or every time I have a problem, I have to reach out. Like I have to have somebody help me
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. Um, that feels kind of like, I don't know, there seems to be a pretty thin line that we might be walking with that sometimes.
Yeah, and it's certainly, any of us would recognize the importance of intimacy and relationships
Hmm.
in our coping skills or strategies,
Yeah,
our ability to
yeah,
regulate. But there is also an element of learning how to self-regulate.
yes.
And if the only thing that we as therapists teach clients is how to reach out,
Yeah,
if they're in crisis and they reach out and nobody's there,
yeah,
what other tools do they have to lean on?
yeah, exactly. And by no means am I saying don't reach out. I was actually, before we got on our phone call, I'm going to be doing a webinar for my um, for the Renfrew Center, which is one of my roles as a therapist. And the whole title is attachment, the intersection of attachment and eating disorders. And so, like how to reach out, how to have those appropriate support people.
Nice.
So reaching out is definitely a beautiful, wonderful thing to do. Reaching out at 3 a.m. whew, that feel for me, I just don't think that I could be in that role to receive that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, unless it was just a complete, crisis of
Yeah.
crises. Yeah,
But I think that's a valuable, like, I look at it as, a tool in your toolbox.
yeah,
So, I mean, I work with people who have addiction issues.
yeah,
And so, one of the first things in 12 steps that they do is in your newcomer meeting, they pass around a slip of paper, and everybody who wants shares their name and their phone number so that
yeah,
when you leave the meeting, you have people you can call
yeah,
if you need. And
yeah,
I always encourage clients, like, have somebody, be it your sponsor, a friend, whomever, be your 3 a.m. call.
yeah.
Like, if you're in the middle of the
It's a great
night and
idea.
you are just like, really wanting to act out in
Yeah,
whatever way that is for you,
yeah,
that you have somebody that has given you permit. Now, that's not saying that they will pick up, because they get to have boundaries too, but somebody has given you permission that you can
yeah,
reach out so that you don't have to do the dance of, well, I don't want to bother anybody. you
Yeah.
know, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of that interpersonal learning of
Yeah.
ask for what you need and the other person gets to decide if they meet it. Try not to
Right.
decide if they're going to meet it before you ask
Yes.
and have that be
Yes.
a boundary to you asking.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, we have talked about all kinds of great things, but let me ask you my first question that
Yeah.
I truthfully usually like to start the conversation with, and that
Yeah.
is why therapy? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah. I love that question. People ask me all the time, and then, and then they want to tell me all sorts of things about themselves when we're having these conversations. So when I was in school, I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do. I'm a Nashville native and have grown up kind of my mother is a graphic designer here in town, and I've kind of always grown up in the creative environment, and she's always worked with music folks. And so when I was in school, I got my degree in music business, and just kind of went down that pathway for about 5 years. And I just had so much fun. I thought it was a great, it was very enjoyable. And at the same time, I knew that I wanted to do more in an effort, like giving back more. Um, and so I didn't really even think about the idea of counseling or doing therapy when I was younger. It wasn't ever even a thing, and I think I maybe even had that stigma that um, something has to really be wrong in order to talk to a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it just wasn't even a path I pursued. And somebody at one point said, Ashley, I think you'd be really good at this. And I thought,
Hmm.
what? Huh? I don't know. And I also grew up in the church, and I loved working with the teenagers in church. And I always was a youth leader, and would do things like that. And so some people would say, oh, Ashley, I think you'd be great as a therapist. Some people would say, oh, Ashley, you'd make a great pastor. And I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really know where this is coming, where my path is taking me. But so eventually I decided I really did want to work with people. I was at, I don't know if it was a party or just a hangout one time, and I met this couple, and they were just really fun. I really enjoyed talking to them. And I was asking them kind of what they did. And the husband, I honestly can't even tell you his name or when this was, but the husband gave me his business card, and it said his name. And then the title was Professional Hanger Outer. And I thought, oh, I want to do that. I am such an extrovert. I want to talk to people. I want to be with people, but I want to do it. I want it to be more than just hanging out. I want it to have substance. And um, so I decided in 2013 to go back for my master's in counseling, and I mean, it was some of the most beautiful stuff I had ever done. Going through my master's program, I went to Trevecca. It
Oh,
was,
same.
yeah, yeah. It was a wonderful program, and I just felt like I learned so much about myself, so much about just just mental wellness. I started seeing my own therapist at that time, and it just felt really right. It felt really beautiful. And so yeah, I stuck with it. And pretty early on they're like, well, what do you want your focus to be? What
Mm-hmm.
you know who are you going to see? And I thought, well, I have no idea. I just know that I genuinely love people. Um, I love being available to people. I feel pretty. Um, diplomatic in my ability to respond and to see both sides of a coin. And so I really had no idea when I was, other than I knew that I loved working with the student population, just in my background being a youth leader,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was what I thought my focus would be. I thought I would work with high schoolers or college students. And it has been so interesting. I feel like every door I've tried to walk in, as far as working with students, has kindly and gently been closed,
Hmm.
and that has not been the direction my path has gone. And so one of my very first jobs was working at a child advocacy center in McMinnville, Tennessee, and I was the trauma therapist there. And trauma had always, now I will say, trauma and attachment, those are really kind of the lenses that I love to see therapy through. Um, I love, love, love helping somebody shift that narrative, especially with trauma, that I am bad and I did something bad and that
Mm-hmm.
I'm wrong, into um, I'm good. And this was part of my story. While it was inappropriate, it should not have happened. It is a part of my story, but I can remove myself from that and feel free, feel that freedom. I love helping them have that narrative shift so much. And I really kind of um, I did that a lot with my very first job, working with children who had been in multiple types of abusive situations, and just found so much. As I feel like it's weird to say that, I found so much joy working with these children, even though they had experienced such trauma, that I felt like I was able to help them shift their perspective.
Yeah.
I was able to give them the tools um, to label that this was not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. Um, and that I found so much joy in helping them, that I thought, this is something that I want to keep pursuing. So um, just continuing to pursue that. Trauma has kind of become one of my motivators in doing therapy and providing therapy, um, and I just really love helping people come out of that place of darkness, um, and finding their inner self again, finding the freedom again, finding their voice and their truths and their values, and um, not the I don't want to say truths, but not the messages that um, they may have been given based on their past traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
Um,
Or like ones that they had to create to survive.
yes, yes, yes. Or the narratives that they had to create to survive, that are not truths. However, it helped them in that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it served them,
Yeah, it served them. And
but
so,
at some point switching from surviving to thriving,
yeah,
that's what you're doing.
yeah. So I've always been a people person, and have always, to my core, valued connection. I'm an extremely, spiritual and faithful person. And um, I remember, you might remember this, Josh. I think I was in high school, maybe a freshman, when the book Purpose Driven Life came out.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that? And it was
Uh-huh.
such a big thing, especially within my church community. I mean, we had Sunday school classes on it. We had Bible studies on it. We had everything. Find your purpose. What's your purpose? What's your purpose? And the challenge for me was, when it said, in the scriptures, it says things like, some are called to be teachers, some are called to be preachers, some are called to be, yada, yada, yada. And I really never felt one specific, like, this is who you're going to be. Um, I remember when I was in college, my roommate, she was a biology major. She knew she wanted to be a biology major, and she knew she wanted to be a pharmacist. So she studied biology in undergrad. She went on to pharmacy school, and she's a pharmacist now, and she knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that that was who she was, what she wanted to do. And always I've been like, well, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Well, maybe I love acting. I'm like, maybe I want to be an acting coach. Maybe we kind of talked about this before too, Josh, but I'm also an Enneagram 7. So you give me multiple ideas and I'll go with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, maybe I want to be an acting coach. Maybe I want to be an actress. Maybe I want to have my own podcast, which, by the way, I have at some point wanted to have my own podcast. Maybe I wanted to be a chef. Just all sorts of things. Um, I kind of lost my place, what I was talking about in
Well,
before
you
that.
were talking about
Yeah.
finding your purpose and
Yeah.
purpose-driven
Oh, yeah, yeah,
life,
yeah.
and
Finding my purpose. Maybe I wanted to be a teacher. Maybe I wanted to, do this or that. Maybe I wanted to be a graphic designer. Um, and I think I kind of had a hard time when I was younger, um, with that book and with being a teenager and being asked, well, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to be? Where are you going to go to school? What are you going to study? And over the years, I think I have been able, just through my own work and realization and prayer time, come to the conclusion that, like, really I am I am created for relationship, and I am created um, to be connected with other people.
mm-hmm.
And so the role of a therapist and as a counselor, it really feels missional almost to me. Um,
Hmm.
but so that I can utilize these tools that I've been taught to help others find that freedom. And again, just those truths about them that are real, those values about them that are real, and yeah, not those kind of um, maladaptive or negative messages that have been given, or again that they may have used to get through some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was a really long answer.
No, it's good though. I mean, I think for me, it's always about like It helps the context of the person. So I mean,
Yeah.
like, I think anybody listening to that would certainly have heard you say that connection, relationship, and intimacy are such a driving force for you.
Hmm.
And I mean, I know. I mean, for me, when it came time to choose between do I want to go the licensed professional counseling route or do I want to go the marriage and family
Yeah.
therapy route, I
Yeah.
went MFT
Hmm.
because I thought to myself, well, I know that I think most people get into the client's seat either because of a relationship that they're in or because the relationship a relationship that they're in is helping to surface something in them
Yeah.
that they want to work on.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you know, trauma or any kind of
Yeah.
relational hurt, if hurt takes place in a relationship is such a powerful tool to heal it.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I think
Yes.
that anybody that is listening to the journey of connection and learning
Hmm.
that it's not just something that you as a person have benefited from, but have grown to appreciate in such a way that you want to help others
Hmm.
not just experience it, but learn how to form it in a more healthy way themselves. I think
Yeah.
that's tremendous.
One of my favorite kind of phrases that I lead by is creating corrective experiences.
Hmm.
I love how forming, even not just me and my clients, but even for my clients when they go out and they form these new relationships, I love how they get to create a corrective experience for themselves. Um, one of my pillars in my office that I want to give my client is a good, safe, and appropriate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want it to feel extremely safe for them. I want it to be appropriate, which means I will employ appropriate, and normal boundaries. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the fact that I'm not available at 3 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they feel so strongly that they need to call me. Um, and I want it to be a good relationship. I want them to be able um, to understand what a healthy relationship is so that they can go out and emulate that. So that they can start to create these very healthy, strong, good, safe, and appropriate relationships with the people that they encounter, with their loved ones, with the ones that they choose to let into their inner circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always say to clients, like, I don't think that everybody's boundaries and self care should look the same,
Yeah.
but I think that everybody's passion to protect their boundaries and self care should be high.
Yes.
And so, while there may be some people out there who are all about getting those 3 a.m. phone calls,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you want to be one of those people. And if
Yeah.
that's a boundary that you've laid down with clients, I think enforcing it and protecting it in your own life teaches them, like, this
Yeah.
is what healthy living looks like.
Yeah.
And it's not having the same rules. It's
Yeah.
just with intention and reflection deciding
Yes.
what works for me
Yeah.
and how do I, kind of lean into that so
Yeah.
that I can be the most me I can be,
Yeah.
so that I can give to others.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Well, let's talk about a movie.
Okay.
So tell me what movie you brought to talk about today.
I brought the movie to Wong Foo. Um, Thanks for
Thank.
everything, Julie Newmar is the rest of
Yes.
it. But it
Yeah.
is it has been a favorite movie of mine since I was a kid, which kind of makes me laugh.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I I I love this movie with my entirety.
Well, the first thing I thought when you told me which one you wanted to talk about was, oh, that's such a long title to fit into
I know.
the the space for the episode title. I mean, I was like ecstatic that you picked it, but I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, I'm gonna have to abbreviate or
I
what am I gonna
think
have
you
to
can
do here?
just put to Wong Foo, right? Do
Oh no,
you? I
I'll
don't.
put it in there. Apple
You'll
has
put the
that
whole
thing
thing.
where it like scrolls a bit, if
Yeah.
the title is too long. So we'll put it in
Yeah.
there. It'll be great.
Okay. Okay.
But so it's from 1995.
Yes. Yes.
Why did you choose this movie?
I remember. So, you want me to give a little synopsis about the movie?
You can if you
Just
like. I
okay.
mean,
Okay.
it's on Netflix, so if folks
It's
want to
on
go.
Netflix. Yeah, people can watch it. This movie, I remember seeing it when I guess I was in middle or high school the first time I watched it, and it's about individuals, drag queens, really figuring out who they are. It's about these three um, men who are embarking on a journey to kind of um, again, like, figure out the values that they operate by and hold true to who they are. And I remember being so impacted by it when I was younger. Um, it's about loving yourself for exactly who you are, which I think is so important. Um, it's about um, it's about it's about recognizing challenges that are going to come up for you and continuing to move forward. There is a scene in the movie, and the scene that got me when I was younger and continues to just pull at my heartstrings. There is a scene in the movie where Patrick Swayze is one of the main characters, and he
Vita.
plays. What was that?
Vita.
Vita, yes, he plays Vita Bowen, and Vita pulls up to her house um, with her friends with her, and Wesley Snipes and John Leguizamo are the other two characters. And Vita pulls up to her home. She's going to show her friends, I assume, her house. And it doesn't tell you who this is, but an older woman walks out, and you see Vita and I'm assuming her mother make eye contact. And it kind of just goes back and forth. And you see Vita kind of do this little reach out with her hand, almost to say, "Hi, I've missed you. I wish I could hug you. I want to touch you." You kind of see that. And then you see, again, who I'm assuming to be her mother, um, look like she has this realization on her face, and seem to get this look of disapproval. And she shakes her head and goes back inside and closes the door.
Yeah.
And that is heartbreaking to me. Um, Absolutely heartbreaking. I think as humans, we crave connection so much. I mean, I think that that's at the core of how we operate, is connection. Um, and to see that door closing, and then Vita speeds off and kind of gets erratic in her driving for a little bit and has to calm down. But that pain that she felt in that moment, um, oh, it broke me.
Yeah.
I ached for her. And I remember aching as a young person too, like, man, that is sad. Um, and so I picked this video because the story that's sort of at the beginning of the story, and then you see she and her friends just on their journey, figuring out what are the truths that they get to live by. What is the narrative that they get to live under, that is helpful and freeing and true to their core and who they are. um and so, yeah.
Yeah, I so the reason why they embark on this journey is
Yeah.
that Vita and Noxima, Wesley Snipes' character, they
Yeah.
co-win, they tie the
Yeah.
local drag, I guess, pageant in
Yes.
New Jersey, and their
Yes.
prize is a trip to Hollywood to
Yes.
compete in the, I guess, the Miss America equivalent, like the
Yeah.
national equivalent drag pageant, and
Yes.
in the I don't know, club, arena, whatever it was that
Hmm.
they won their contest, they end up meeting John Leguizamo's character Chichi Rodriguez,
Yes.
and they take a liking to her and
Yes.
decide they want to take her with them,
Hmm.
and so they talk to Robin. I did not remember Robin Williams being in this movie, but
Oh, yeah.
they talked to Robin Williams, whose character's name was John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
His name is my
Um,
name too.
uh huh. Do the people always shout at you? Yeah, they do. Oh, oh yeah. But they talk to him. They sell their plane tickets to him
Yes.
to try to get a mode of transport that
Yes.
could transport three people instead of just two. So they end up renting a car,
Yeah.
and then they're going to drive out to Hollywood, and that's how they get on this journey.
Yes.
And the story, as I understood it, was that was Vita's mom, because before
Yeah.
they pulled up to that house, Noxima asked her, oh, you didn't tell me that you were rich. And she said, well,
Yes.
I'm not rich. My parents are
My
rich.
parents are.
But
Yeah.
I think she said, but I don't know if she said I rejected that or something along those lines. And
Yeah.
so when they pulled up to the house, at least what I imagined was, Vita was going to tell them, I won this thing
Yeah.
and I'm on my way to do a bigger thing. But
Yeah.
then when the mom came out and then turned around and closed the door,
Yeah.
it was this like immediate. I mean, you could tell in her face
Yeah.
she was broken,
Yeah.
but I think it was just this like momentary thing, because she very quickly kind of like collects herself
Yeah.
and then hits the gas,
Yeah.
and moves on.
Yeah.
which, uh, I would imagine is a coping strategy that she has
Yes.
had to have,
Yeah.
you know, to get by.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, that's why they set out on the journey, and that's,
Yeah.
I think, a very quick and powerful way
Yeah.
to kind of communicate to you what's at the heart of Vita.
Yes. Well, and one of the things that they said when they were driving through that neighborhood, I think it was Chi Chi asked Vita, Vita, why did you give all of this up? And Vita said, Vita gave all of this up to become Vita. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think when earlier when I was talking about creating those corrective experiences and finding your truths and your values, um, to be able to um, walk away from a narrative that maybe I imagine gave Vita a ton of shame and a ton of maybe even guilt, like for having these feelings, for being wanting to be the person that she ultimately became, um, for her to be able to embark on a journey with people. So again, at the beginning of the movie, you see that Vita and Noxie are friends, and they kind of bring Chi Chi into this. But the fact that she is still able to take a chance and embark on new relationships with different people, um, not knowing how they're going to turn out, not knowing whether she's going to be accepted or not,
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most beautiful things I think she is able to do, taking those chances and taking those chances on relationships that can be healthy, even when we have no idea how the relationship might turn out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it shows a tremendous amount of strength and courage
yeah,
because I think it's really, really easy and understandable that
hmm,
if you get um, hurt or burned in a
hmm,
relationship, and especially one with a primary attachment figure like a
yeah,
parent,
yeah,
to create a message in your head, well, people aren't safe.
hmm,
I don't get to have relationships.
yeah,
And so I will, take care of myself, or
yeah,
I'll meet my own needs, or
yeah,
I just won't try anymore. I think it would be,
yeah,
tremendously easy, and I would completely understand, that message. But I
yeah,
think you see in Vita this, like, well, like I said, like courage and strength and determination to continue to strive, to continue
yeah,
to connect, to continue to, be a person
yeah,
and have relationships.
yeah.
And that's amazing.
It is. I think it's beautiful. I love it, and I love the learn. So throughout the movie, then Chi Chi, as they're taking her under her wing, Chi Chi become or so she calls herself a drag queen, and Vita and Noxie kind of they scoff at that at first, and they say, "Well, you're a drag princess. We need to kind of teach you a few things in order to become a queen." And so they the values that they kind of work throughout the movie. I wrote them down, and I think that for them, this was these values were their truths. These values
Mm-hmm.
were the things that they needed to hold on to keep.
These are their rules.
Yes, these are their
Yeah.
roles. Did you write them down too?
No, huh?
No.
I realized once, like at one point, Noxzema or Chi Chi was talking, and Noxzema
Mm-hmm.
kind of looked at Vita and was like, "Mm-hmm, number three."
Mm-hmm.
Right, number
Number
three, and
three.
that's when I realized, like, oh man, the rules. I didn't get number,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So the first one was think good thoughts, and I think that came. I think that maybe came when they were leaving Vita's mom's house, when they were setting out on the road. Um, More so talking about, and so through therapist language, I might encourage somebody if they really um, kind of get stuck on a loop of this negative cognitive thinking pattern, I might encourage them to do a reframe, pull my CBT skills, my cognitive behavioral skills, and encourage them to do a reframe, which means what could also be true. Could it be true that it's cloudy outside today? If a client came in, it's cloudy outside and it's gloomy and nobody loves me, and I might say what could also be true. So their reframe could be, well, it's cloudy outside, but that doesn't mean that nobody loves me. It's cloudy outside and I could find a friend. It's cloudy outside today, but it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow. These reframes help us with cognitive flexibility, and they help us get away from that kind of very negative and stuck place of thinking. So their first rule was think positive thoughts. Their second one was ignore adversity. And they came about this one by they were driving, you mentioned, from New York City to LA to Hollywood. And they're tired and they need to sleep. And if you can imagine, there's even one scene where Vita talks about this. Her license says the name Eugene and not Vita. And so stopping for a hotel, Patrick Swayze, Wesley Snipes, they're both really tall men. So you can imagine really tall women coming in, how they might be viewed or looked at or judged. And they come into this hotel and the manager immediately greets them and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have greeted you in the parking lot. Welcome. Your friends are waiting for you." And they're like, "We have friends, huh?" And it just so happens that hotel is hosting a female basketball championship. And so they plug in with these ball players, and they have the time of their lives, and they are wined and dined for a few days. They get to play some basketball, and just be themselves, and so they're sitting at the pool, painting their nails and eating their grapes and drinking their wine. And I think it was Noxie said, the second rule is ignore adversity. And I loved that role because I thought, especially so, working in trauma and working with eating disorders, you see there are messages that come up all the time, that tell us we're not good enough as we are. The person that I am as I exist today is not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not valuable. There are messages like that all over the place, all over social media, all over, print, TV ads, things like that. There's so much like diet talk in our culture, So if I am in a bad spot, if I'm in a bad space, the message that I'm going to tell myself is that I'm not good enough, especially if I see, there's been so much talk about like the COVID-19, especially in like body image and eating disorder world. What does that mean? Like losing 19 pounds in the time that you're, stuck in your house. So if I'm just seeing this messaging everywhere, then of course, the internal message I'm sending myself is that I'm not good enough. And so the ability that they can arrive to the rule of ignoring adversity, means that they have the ability to stop that negative messaging. First of all, to acknowledge that the negative messaging is there, to have awareness that it is unhelpful, to stop it and to bring themselves back to themselves and say, no, I am everything that I need to be, So I loved that role. I thought that role was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that you mentioned the first step of kind of identifying it
Yeah.
as a negative message,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
that, one of the things that makes, I guess I'll start by calling it negative self-talk, but
Yeah.
so many times it just becomes a tape that's playing on loop in our heads
Yeah.
where it becomes a part of us. So
Yes.
I think that by being able to recognize it, clock it, acknowledge it, call it what it is, it's the first steps of externalizing it
Yes.
and realizing like this line of thinking, this message is not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's what I believe, maybe it's what I
Mm-hmm.
think, maybe it's what I've been taught, but it's not who I am. And if
Yeah.
something's not who I am, that means I can change it.
Yes. Yes. If it's not who I am, then yes, I can change it, and I don't have to keep giving it space. I don't have to keep holding it when it's not, that this is not a part of me. Um, I tell my clients all the time when we walk through different tools to recognize these messages, these negative messaging patterns, and where they're coming from. I say, like, this is not the answer to the negative messages as we walk through recognizing them, but you will be surprised at how different you feel once you start acknowledging and having the awareness that these are negative messages.
Yeah.
um, because then, just like you said, you feel free from them because you have then been able to externalize them, so they are not a part of you. um, yeah. So I love that. I love doing that with our clients. Just simply the first step of acknowledging and practicing awareness.
Yeah.
Um, One of my favorite ways to do that is I love mindfulness practices and
Mm-hmm.
meditation and deep breathing. And at the Renfrew Center, working with clients, the three pillars there are present focus, non judgmental awareness. And so when we can give ourselves the ability to acknowledge what's going on, um, and not judge it for anything, not pass a judgment on it, and keep ourselves in the present moment, we feel so much freedom. Um, and even not judging it might mean, like, we might have thoughts. So going back to the cloudy day, and let's say nobody's called me on that cloudy day, and well, I'm mad at my friend Stephanie because she didn't call me on that cloudy day. If you go back to those principles of present focus, non-judgmental awareness, you can start to have awareness that you had the thought, I'm mad at Stephanie because she didn't call me on that day, but you don't have to judge yourself for even having that thought, because sometimes then, once we have that negative thought, then we can get mad at ourselves for getting mad at a friend, and then, which
Mm-hmm.
then perpetuates the cycle of, see, you're not good or you're bad because you keep getting mad at the people that you love, right? So when you practice that piece of acknowledgement, coupled with that not judging your thoughts or your experience, um, I think you find so much freedom out of that.
Yeah, we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are not us.
Yes. Yeah.
I saw let's see, here we go. Russell Brand on his Instagram
Uh-huh.
six days ago put up a quote that said, "I am not what I think and feel. I am witnessing what I think and feel."
Oh, yes.
And I really liked that because
Yeah.
and really the way that I usually try to talk to clients about it is, I'll emphasize we are not our thoughts, we are not our
Mm-hmm.
feelings. I said
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, every time somebody cuts me off in traffic, I'm a murderer.
Right. Right.
And it's just not true. Like just because I had a thought
Right.
in a moment doesn't
Right.
mean that that is who I am.
Right. Exactly.
And what's funny is like with I mean, I don't think that I have road rage, but with like an example that's like road rage,
Yeah.
it's really easy for people to understand. They just
Yes.
go, "Oh yeah, you're right. Like I would think something like that, but I don't take that in as a part of me."
Yes. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's good. So what were
Yeah.
the other rules?
I think there was only one more, um, and it was, the third rule was abide by the rules of love,
Yeah.
and again, that was very specific to the three of them walking through their journey and through their process. As Chi Chi developed a crush on, their car broke down, and they got originally, their thought would be, we're stuck in this very small town. I think they were in Oklahoma. I can't remember, somewhere in Oklahoma. But it ended up being a really beautiful place for them to be. And there was a guy there that Chi Chi met and was really kind of crushing on. Um, and she realized that she started asking him, they were talking in one scene and they were asking questions to each other, and she said, so do you have to be truthful? Do you have to be honest about everything? And the guy said, oh yes. I think his name was Bobby Ray. Bobby Ray said, oh yes,
Yes.
Miss Chi-Chi, you have to be honest about everything.
There were several Bobbies in the town.
There
There
were
was Bobby Ray, Bobby Lee, Bobby Joe.
there were
Yeah.
Joe John or something like that. There were several Bobbies. Um, and you also learn that, okay, so Bobby Ray is the guy. You also learn that Bobby Lee, the girl, and Bobby Ray are around the same age, and that they also kind of like each other. And so Chi Chi goes through this kind of really a transformation where she kind of stops putting. I don't want to say that she's being selfish by any means, but she recognizes that she cannot be authentically with him if she doesn't tell him that she was born a man, and she's not ready for that. And maybe wonders if he's ready for that too, because he has the understanding that she is a woman. And so she kind of releases herself from crushing on him, and tells Bobby Ray that she's allowed to, that she can, they can have a relationship if they want. So that was kind of the last rule, which I thought was pretty sweet for them. Abide by the rules of love. So
Yeah. Which I
yeah,
mean, I think that I think that last rule, I think there could be an infinite number of things to unpack from that.
yeah,
But I think that in that conversation that they were having at the table,
yeah,
when they kind of first put that rule out there, I
yeah,
think, one of the implications I got was think of others, like don't be
yes,
selfish.
yes,
There are other people around who have stories and hearts and lives just like
yes,
you do.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing, and I kind of
yeah,
wondered if they were maybe implying something along the lines of like, hey, you're not going to stay here,
yeah,
so is it fair? Because I think that they knew or recognized or caught on that it wasn't just Chi Chi
yeah,
that was after this guy; it was Bobby
yes,
Lee as well. So I
yes,
kind of got like, think of others. You're not going to be here. Is it really fair for you to claim him when
yeah,
we are visitors,
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of thing? But I might have
yeah.
imagined that last part.
No, no, I think you're right. Think of others. I think they even said that as well. Putting others' needs um, before yours, and I say that with a little hesitation in my voice, because so often in therapy we're talking about putting, like, it's important for you to put your needs, to make sure that your needs are met, because a lot of times, we see people coming in who have always put other people's needs in front of their own,
Yeah.
and I think that there is a really beautiful balance with that, of caring for others, um, and also caring for yourself, but also, kind of like the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Um, and it's important. We all want to be selfish sometimes, and it is important to share, and
Yeah.
to be with others just as much. Yeah.
Well, I think that what's interesting about that is I don't necessarily think it was them telling Chi Chi put others' needs in front
Right.
of yours.
Right.
I think it was something more along the lines of put them at the same level.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I identify that in one way because the like the biggest part, the bulk of my personal work when I was a client in therapy
Hmm.
wasn't, hey, stop being so Well, I'm going to have to rephrase that. I was going to say stop being so selfish. I was
Yeah.
selfish, but it was
Yeah.
shaking out in a different way.
Yeah.
For me, it was an immediate and constant putting other people's needs and desires and wants and feelings in front of mine because I had
Yeah.
such a low self value.
Yeah. Yes.
And so for me, the work wasn't, hey, you like put yourself, like put others first instead of you. It was, hey, increase how much you value yourself and realize
Yes.
that what you want, need, desire, feel, think is just as valuable as everybody else.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like that right there is the overarching message of this movie. Um, you are valuable. Um, I feel like pain happens so much when we have the inability to see, or when we lack the ability to see the value in ourselves, right? And so we carry around um, this huge sense of insecurity, and I'm not good enough. And so we are trying
Mm.
to meet other people's needs, going back and forth. What can I do for you to make you love me? Um, and I feel like
Or to
the
keep you loving me.
or to keep you loving me, exactly. How can I yeah, how can I make you stay in this relationship, even if it's toxic? And when I even say relationship, I don't mean romantic, any sort of a friendship, a parent-child relationship, a romantic relationship, any of that.
Yeah.
How can I keep you, or keep this relationship? What can I do to keep feeding that? And I would venture to say that many of my clients continue that pattern. And so, yes, it is about, where does this self-love come, that I can start working on my ego strength. So like the
Mm-hmm.
strength that is at my core, and working on my insecurities, so that I don't devalue myself.
Yeah,
Um,
it feels related to me
yeah,
to an external versus an internal locus of control. So,
yes,
like, if you believe that you have no ability to influence events in your
yeah,
life, that's an external locus of control. Like, life happens to me, I have no say in the matter. Like
yeah,
I'm just a passenger along for the ride.
yeah,
Versus internal locus of control, I believe I have direct influence on the events of my life.
yeah,
Now, that's not to say total influence because
right,
life happens on its own terms, but
correct,
I
yeah,
do have the ability to influence it some.
yes,
And it feels very related to that in the sense of if I derive value, meaning, love from
mm-hmm,
exclusively from others outside of
mm-hmm,
myself,
mm-hmm,
then it would make sense
mm-hmm,
that I would do anything to make or keep those people happy so
yes,
that they would continue to give me what I receive from them.
yes,
But if I derive it from something intrinsically inside of myself,
yeah,
then it provides me a sense of, I'm going to call it freedom,
yeah,
so that regardless of what is happening in my relationships, I know who I am. I
yeah,
know that I'm valuable, and I get to have boundaries and say, well, this is what it's going to take to be in a
yes,
relationship with me. And that's not
yes,
devaluing the others, but
yeah,
that's valuing yourself. And I think
yes,
that, like, we saw that journey take place with one of the women in the town, Carol Ann,
yes.
played by the incredible Stockard Channing. I,
Wasn't
as
it
I
so
was
great to see her?
Oh yeah. Well, like
I love
as I
her.
was watching it this morning, my wife came downstairs and
Hmm.
I introduced her and her family. I want to say it was either last summer or the summer before to The West Wing,
Oh yeah,
and which I love that show with my whole heart. It's incredible. I introduced them, and
yeah,
then when we got home, she and I continued to watch it through the whole series. So it was like my
yeah,
third time watching the whole series. But I told my wife, I was like, I am telling myself the story that Carol Ann left her husband and
Mm-hmm.
left the town and met
Mm-hmm.
Jed Bartlett
Mm-hmm.
and fell in love and became first lady. And
Yes.
but Carol Ann, she's married to the mechanic who
Yes.
is going to, I think his name was Arliss, who was working on Vita and Noxzema and Chi-Chi's car.
Car. Yeah.
And he was abusive. Like he hit
Mm-hmm.
her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 2 or 3 times it was
Mm-hmm.
over her making pasta sauce too spicy.
Yes.
I want to
Yes.
say he like
Yeah.
picked up the pot and threw it against the lower
Yeah.
cupboards,
Yeah.
and I mean she. I remember hearing a Amy Alexander one time talk about abusive relationships and
Mm-hmm.
calling it I think domestic terrorism
Yeah. Yeah.
because there was this element of, you know, we can all clearly like say unequivocally that
Mm-hmm.
when there's physical abuse, it's wrong. But what
Yes.
happens if the abuser never touches the abused? What happens if
Yeah.
they take a coffee mug and
Yeah.
they throw it at the wall
Yeah.
next to you and it
Mm-hmm.
breaks? And
Mm-hmm.
they instill in you this sense of fear where you just
Mm-hmm.
live in this hyper vigilant state.
Yeah.
Your brain is just getting cortisol poured into it
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
you know? And like there were times in showing Carol Ann and her husband's relationship where you
Mm-hmm.
certainly saw him be violent, but you also saw him employ
Yeah.
that kind of terroristic, like
Yeah.
fear
Yeah.
creation in
Yes.
her, where he would like all of a sudden have these kind of jerky movements, like he was going to corner her,
Yeah.
um, and just speak just so horribly to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, you know, Carol Ann is probably the most personal story of the movie that we see somebody being uh, shown and gifted their own value through relationship. I think every person in that town
Mm-hmm.
gets a little bit of that
Mm-hmm.
from Chi-Chi and Vita and Noxzema. But I think
Mm-hmm.
Carol Ann, you certainly see the most of it in because like Vita like intervenes
Yes.
and like at one point, you know, busts down the door in
Yes.
Carol Ann's apartment, uh,
Yes.
like not shuffles, but like moves her out into the
Yes.
hallway. I don't know why my mind is going blank on a verb for
She
what
ushers
she
her out
ushers.
too.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes, ushers. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she ushers her out, and then
Yeah.
she closes the door and stays in with that husband and says
Yeah.
like, and I mean this, you know, the line that he says back, but she says, "I understand that you like to hit girls," and he says, "Well, some girls deserve to be hit,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and then she says, "Well, some girls hit back," and then she
Mm-hmm.
slaps him once and then
Mm-hmm.
punches him
Mm-hmm.
full on in the face.
Yeah.
Which it's tough to not stand up and cheer at that. But
Yes.
not that
Yes.
we're advocating violence at
Violence.
all.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, I think Carol Ann's is really a story where you see
Yeah.
an example of uh, Vita learning more about her own value by helping another
Yes.
person find theirs, and
Yeah.
it harkens back to, I mean, so many times on the show, and I hope that people aren't like sick of this yet, but it's just
Yeah.
how I think and how I work and who I work
Mm-hmm.
with. But I hearken things that we come across in movies and stuff to 12 steps, and
Yeah.
it reminds me so much of a step 12. You know,
Mm-hmm.
carry the message out into the world of those that need it, and it's like taking something that you've learned and
Mm-hmm.
then giving it away helps
Yes.
kind of like vacuum seal it inside of yourself.
Yes, it does. It helps secure that value inside, exactly what you said, inside of yourself. And so you can walk away from that experience then feeling more confident in who you are. And not feeling, that underlying pressure to again like live by your insecurities. Um, and kind of towards the end of the movie, um, so Vita does that, and then Virgil, the husband, leaves and goes
Virgil.
and yeah,
What did I say? I
yeah.
said Arliss. I don't know where I got that from.
I don't know. That's fine. He leaves and he goes to a bar and gets drunk and um, commiserates. So part of the story we haven't even gotten into, and we don't have to talk much about it. But he commiserates with this cop who was a crooked cop who had pulled the girls over on their journey and had tried to really molest Vita.
Yeah.
And when he pulled her over, and he realized that Vita was a man, and so kind of had this like freak out moment, probably for himself, and so he then made it his mission to track down the girls.
But
And
he didn't have that moment for too long because Vita shoves him off, and the way he lands knocks him
yes,
out.
yes, Vita shoved him off when he touched her, and
Yeah.
yeah, it knocked him out. Um, so when he woke up, he kind of had made it his mission to hunt them down, and it was like, what are you going to do? Arrest them? I'm not sure, but he employed the almost like the hate speech or the yuck that follows us, that we're kind of like nervous is lurking around every corner. That's kind of, he definitely played, he was the villain in the movie. And so Virgil goes to a bar and they realize that they are talking about the same people. They're kind of commiserating about these three women who they don't like. And Virgil doesn't like Vita simply because Vita took up for Carol Ann and punched him.
Hmm.
Um, and so uh, all of this to say they come back, and it's the day of the strawberry social at the town, and which the girls have really helped the town come together and kind of create this strawberry social. And just a little caveat about the strawberry social, probably my favorite line in the whole movie is when one of the women of the town is explaining the strawberry social to Vita, Noxie, and Chi Chi, and they're like, "Oh, this sounds great. What is the strawberry social?" And she says, "Well, we all come together and we all make strawberry pies, and then we eat the pies, and then we go home." and, and I just thought that that was the sweetest, most innocent line in the whole movie.
Yeah.
So,
Something
so
doesn't
the
have to be complicated for it to be great.
right, that's so true. So the girls are helping them with the strawberry social, and anyway, Virgil comes back to the town, and so does the sheriff, and they're looking for the girls, and they're asking, like, we know they're here, and they're spouting off names. They're calling them all sorts of horrible names, and they're like, whoever owns this shoe, you need to come out. And so you see um you see the town kind of looking out of their windows, and then you see someone walk out, and she is in this just fully red masked outfit with a red veil. You can't see her face. And again, it's the strawberry social, so they're all dressing up. Um, and then finally, she takes off her veil, and you see that it is Carol Ann. And she is standing so proud and so strong in a way that you have not seen her. Because just what you were saying, the fear that she had throughout the movie, where she was just doubled over and just seemed so frail. She is standing so strong. Um, and she says, "That's my shoe." And the cop obviously knows that it's not. He's like, "You're not the one." Well, then the entire rest of the town comes out, and everybody says, "No, that's my shoe. That's my shoe." And they are all, I think, surrounding Carol Ann, but also protecting Vita, Noxie, and Chi Chi. And in that moment, I mean, that is just the most beautiful, like, redemptive moment for everyone, for Carol Ann, also for the town to come together. They're friends, they're chatting, they're bonding, but also for Vida, Noxie, and Chi Chi, who had felt like outcasts and had felt like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to fit in. And so the
It's
town eventually, yeah, go ahead.
it's
Sorry.
very I Am Spartacus. Like if you've
Yeah,
ever
it
seen
is.
the Kirk Douglas movie
Yeah.
Spartacus, I mean it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's we're not going to let you have these people that we care about. You can
Yes.
have all of us. Do you want that? Do you want all of
Yeah.
us?
And what a cool thing, what you just said. We're not going to let you have these people we care about. These women felt cared about, maybe for the first time in a long time, by people that had been strangers 3 days prior to that, because they got stuck in the town for 3 days while their car was being fixed. Um, but so you see the sheriff leave, and then Virgil's just standing there, and Carol Ann doesn't even say a word. She stands there strong and proud, and she just stares him down, and he gets in his car, and I imagine that he drives off and never comes back. And that moment of strength, that very real moment that she was able to stand up for herself, to her abuser, and maybe even to those abusive messages that she had had. And she didn't even have to say a word. She embodied strength.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then and then the scene kind of cuts to Vida and Chi Chi and Noxie were all hiding in their hotel that they were staying in. And you see them come out of hiding, and you see them just kind of circle up together, and they talk about the amazingness of these people loving them, of these people
Mm-hmm.
caring about them, and how beautiful it is. And they're all kind of making these assertions, these statements. And this line has always been my favorite line from this movie. I kind of, like, I remember thinking it as a kid, and just kind of something that has always empowered me as a woman, as a human, as a therapist, as a wife, as a friend. But the line says, approval. Vida is talking about her
Oh yeah.
pain from
Yeah.
her parents. Yeah, and she's moving. You see, she's moving from that. Um, Life has always happened to me, to kind of, I'm making life happen now again. Like, I get to it, the locus of control gets to be within me, and not about the stuff that maybe happened to me. And she says, your approval is neither desired or required, but I will take your acceptance.
Yeah.
And that for me is like, I mean, it's a great movie, but I tear up every time at that scene, because that right there is freedom. Um, and I think that not only is Vida feeling that, I think Carol Ann is feeling that. I think Noxie and Chi Chi are feeling that. Um, I do not have to receive approval from the outside in order to love myself, but I will take your acceptance, and I will accept you in return, for
Yeah.
just exactly who you are. I just think that scene is just so powerful to me.
Well, and there's something about the way that she phrases that where it's like
Hmm.
the acceptance isn't required either,
No, no,
but it's welcomed. And in
it is
return,
welcomed.
I don't even
Yeah,
know about in return, but
yeah,
I will also accept you.
yeah.
And it gives space for uh individuality within community,
Yes, yes.
which I
And
think is
how
such a powerful thing.
it's so powerful. It's for me to be exactly who I am within a safe realm of relationship, within having my safe community, my supportive community. I mean, that to me is life. That to me is life giving. That is thriving. That is like what I want for every person I've ever come across in life, not only patients, but my family and friends, to be able to be solid and grounded and loving exactly the person that they are, that they feel they are, um, to love themselves that much and to still love and feel safe and wanted and accepted in community is it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved it. I mean, such a great movie.
Yeah.
I leaned over and said to Leanne, I think when the credits were rolling, this was such a sweet movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's so
It
sweet.
It is so sweet. It is. And I've thought that, yeah, always, since the first time I watched it. And I could probably quote every single line. And was, 'cause I rewatched it last night again just to like have it fresh on my mind, but I really could quote every single line. But
I
it,
want
it
to
is so
have I
sweet.
want to have a recording of like the 2 second thing when all three of them are in the car and they go
Uh,
just so I can like send it to people when I'm
yeah.
trying to think of stuff. It's
When they
great.
when they do the style or substance moment, or just
Uh
the
huh.
just the
Yeah.
yeah.
And they all like kind of like put their fingers on their chins like
Yeah.
they're thinking.
That would be a great meme, or,
Oh yeah.
like a GIF, the things that,
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'll do is if I see something like that in a TV show or a movie or something, I
yeah.
will make like a second or two long video on my phone and
Oh,
like I'll
yeah.
send it like I have one from have you ever seen Schitt's Creek?
No, I've not seen it.
Okay, you got to get on that.
Mm-mm.
It's
Okay.
incredible. But
Okay.
like I have one from that show that
Yeah.
I have sent to several people and that they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, can I use this?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, run with
Yeah.
it. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it."
That's
Um,
awesome.
well, let me shift gears. I want to ask
Okay.
you, tell me something that your clients have taught you.
I I love this question so much. I, by nature, would say that I am a fixer. And
Mm,
yeah, and I want to resolve the conflict. I want to resolve the problem. I want to fix it. And I would say that one of the best things I have learned, um, is that it is quite an honor and a humbling experience to sit with somebody as they share any part of their story that they need to share, and listening, genuinely being present and listening with them, um, is maybe one of the best things that I can provide as a therapist. Um, Genuine, like, attunement. And I know that, like, in school, we're taught to attune to your clients, like, when their body moves, move your body, like, figure out what's going on. But I'm telling you, like, I think it's one thing to be taught something, but to actually practice, um, sitting with somebody, it's just an honor. I mean, I feel so honored to be, with the people that I get to work with, to just sit with them and listen and help them, process, if they have questions, help them process in any way that they need. But, um,
so has it helped to
I
slow you down?
yeah, I would say I am not the knower of all things, and a lot of times, or probably in my youth, I definitely thought that I was. By the time I reached 16, I knew it all. My mom didn't know anything, I mean, just kind of
Oh yeah.
standard that. But I am not the knower of all things. And rather, um, I am a person that can sit and be with you, and hear whatever it is that you would like to share. So
Mm,
yes, slowing down for sure, but also I would just say that they teach me that I don't have to fix them and that I don't have to fix everything.
yeah.
And that's not what this is even about. Um, and I feel like, again, just um, that good, safe, and appropriate relationship that exists within the office space is beautiful, and it does teach me to pause. But it also takes a lot of the urgency for me to fix them away, because I think that that's not
Mm.
even what it's about, you know, rather than helping them um, share their story in a way that feels safe for them to share their story. Because that's big stuff right there, especially somebody that's never talked about something that's going on. The amount of darkness and maybe pain that's living inside of them, because maybe they feel shame about sharing that story. Just being with them as they talk is that in and of itself is a beautiful, honoring thing for me to be a part of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Tell me something that you do to take care of yourself.
Yeah. I love um I love exercising my creativity. Um and that could come in a form of, I mean, I might color one day. I love
Hold on, hold on,
doing,
hold on.
yeah,
Don't shy away from that. We
I
have
know.
many coloring books in our
I
house.
know, I know. I love colors. I just I don't know. I feel kind of silly saying that, but colors, like putting colors on a palette, whether it's a coloring book or a blank canvas, is just so beautiful to see what you come
Yeah.
up with. I love art. So I might do something creative with art. I have crafts at my house, so I might paint or I really got into, at the beginning of the pandemic, I really got into doing putting nails in wood and then wrapping string around it to like make
Oh
different shapes
yeah.
and different, yeah,
Yeah.
things like that. And I just use the pandemic because of course it's really important, during this time to definitely practice self-care. But I also practice creativity in my cooking. I have a cooking blog that I do on
Nice.
Instagram, and I don't really have that many followers, but it's really fun to post and do, try different recipes, and
Yeah.
um and
My wife
yeah.
has had a self care practice this year where every month she picks something from the Great British Bake Off
Oh,
and
yes.
tries to bake that.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing.
And I am a giant supporter of that self care practice
You
because
are.
it is
Mm-hmm.
self care for her and it is pastry for me. And that is just the
Yes.
beauty of marrying the right person.
It is delicious goodness for you.
Yeah.
My husband one time, last year, not this past Christmas, but the year before, got me baking classes for Christmas, and I wanted them. But we
Oh.
we told some of our friends, and they kind of scoffed. They were like, "Did you take that as an insult, Ashley? Like, does he say you need to learn how to bake?" And I'm like, "No,
Oh.
I love it. I love baking. I love cooking. I just love being creative."
Yeah.
Going back to that at the very beginning, I was talking about I wanted to be everything and do everything when I grew up. I really was so close to going to culinary school,
Mm-hmm.
or pastry school. I ended up not, because I didn't want, my thought was, I don't want something that I love so much I don't want to ever get mad at it when I have to hustle and it's not a very fun day.
Yeah.
I want it to stay my hobby. But I don't know. I've really considered pastry school. Just I love decorating cakes and all sorts of stuff. It just sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, I just love exercising creativity. I also love talking to my friends. I mean, I could talk constantly. So I love being with my friends, and one of the things we're doing right now, other than FaceTime and Zoom, is we've been doing a bunch of online dance classes together.
Huh. That is
Yeah, so
interesting.
it's been so fun. I mean, moving your body is so fun, especially when we might feel just a little bit stagnant as a society right now. But yeah, doing dance classes together, like workout dance classes, so they're kind
Mm-hmm.
of high energy, uh, fun movement. But So yeah, any and all of that.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
So let's say that somebody was listening to our conversation and they're thinking to
Yes.
themselves, she's
Yeah.
cool. I would love to see her as a client. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Um, so my email, well, I've got a Facebook page. It's called Ashley Vicari Counseling. So if you did just Facebook / Ashley Vicari Counseling, that's probably the best way. It's got my phone and my email, how to contact me. And if it's regarding eating disorder work, you're welcome to reach out to me, or anybody's welcome to reach out to me there. But also, if you wanted, very like some more intense eating disorder stuff or had questions about that, you can reach me at the Renfrew Center by calling 1-800-RENFREW. And that's REN as in Nancy, F as in Frank, REW. So yeah, so either of those two places are probably the best places to reach me.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for being
thank
on
you,
the show
Josh.
today. It has just been
Yes,
such a pleasure to talk with you. And
yes.
yeah, can't wait to have you back again.
Same. It's been so nice. Um, I really appreciated this and just getting to know you, and look forward to actually meeting you in person.
Oh my gosh, yes. Absolutely. Hey, everybody, this is Josh. I have seen so, so many. I have seen several posts on Instagram pop up in the past week saying something along the lines of, you don't have to be productive every day. What you do during the day doesn't have to be the same as what you did pre social distancing or quarantining. And I got to tell you, those posts, they came right in the nick of time, because and Leanne, my wife, can tell you this, I am a person who very much strives to be what, in my own judgment, is productive. I subscribe to a lot of channels on YouTube that focus on productivity and getting stuff done. I've read 4 Hour Work Week. I have purchased to-do list apps. I have tried systems. Any of my grad school classmates can tell you about my color coding system. I really like being productive. And seeing these posts on Instagram was really challenging to me, because, as I've said before during the wrap up, during self isolation, social social distancing, and quarantine, which has been going on for our family since mid March, there have been days that I have felt energized and I have felt I can get a lot of work done. And there have been days that I have felt drained and I have felt low and I have felt not like myself. And I really struggled during those days, because I've got a message that plays in the back of my head that, you know, well, a person who has it all together would be able to power through. A person who has it all together would be able to still churn out the same amount of work. The person who has it all together would have energy. And those Instagram posts that I saw, as well as some sessions that I've had with clients this week, have just reminded me that during the time that we're in right now, we can't use the same measure for success. We can't use the same measure that we did pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we may have said, in order for me to have a good day, I've got to do A, B, C, D, and E. But even though it's been said a lot, and almost to the point where it has lost a little bit of its power, it still bears repeating and reminding some that we are in a global pandemic. We are in a collective trauma. We are in a crisis of the world. Our lives at the moment are not like they were before. And because of that, we have had certain restrictions and restraints recommended to us that have changed our lives. And so to use the same measures that we did before isn't realistic. And what I was reminded of this week, and what I'd like to remind you of now, is that to try to focus so much, or to try to focus exclusively on the way things were, the past, that is written in stone, and there's nothing we can do about it. And no matter how much we want, we can't make right now like it was in February or January or December. We can't. That's the past. It's gone. If we try to focus so much on the future, well, the future doesn't exist. The future is a concept. We don't know what the future holds. We don't even know if we have tomorrow. And I'm not saying this in like a super spiritual, whatever kind of way. I'm speaking as literally and as concretely and as groundedly as I can. When we let our brains travel to the future, what happens is it produces worry and anxiety because we are trying to see, understand, and I guess reach something that doesn't exist. And so I was reminded this week that the best thing that we can do right now, and the best way we can determine a new measure for our lives, is to focus on the here and now. Recovery has language that helps us with this. Recovery says we take things 24 hours at a time. And if 24 hours is too much, we take it 1 hour at a time. And if 1 hour is too much, guess what? We take it 30 minutes at a time, and so on and so forth. We can keep making that number smaller. Recovery also teaches us that instead of worrying, what do I do in a week? What do I do in 2 weeks, a month? What am I going to do in the fall? Instead of worrying about that stuff, all we worry about is doing the next right thing. And I'm not talking about a moral choice, like a right or a wrong choice. But I mean, in the moment, what's the next right thing for you? And I want you to know that you have it within you to know what that is when the choice presents itself. Doing the next right thing. So, if we take it 24 hours at a time and we do the next right thing, we have a great chance of living in the here and the now. The benefits of that is it decreases anxiety, it decreases worry, and it helps us establish what is a new measure that we can use to determine how we have a good day, which means how at the end of the day, or even in the moment, we can connect with ourselves and we can find satisfaction, contentment, and fulfillment in our life. Thanks so much for joining me this week in the theater. I'll make sure I save a seat for you and a friend next week. Let's raise the lights, lower the curtain, and say that for this week, the theater is closed.